Hearing none, the motion is approved and the Justice Committee is so constituted. Senator Gordon.
With the permission of the Majority Floor Leader, Mr. President, I am honored and I thank those of you who asked me to chair this committee. I do so without any lobbying on my part to get this committee. The Senate President is well aware of the fact that I never asked for the Blue Ribbon Committee, and what was left of the other committee I accepted without any lobbying on my part. In this particular instance, hindi rin po ako nanghingi nitong committee ito. It's a very, very difficult task to handle, especially with the Blue Ribbon Committee and the Government Corporations Committee as well. I have handled 3 committees in my first time in the Senate, and as you know, I will always give it 100% whenever we do handle these committees. I do pray for the support of the members and the understanding. I just want to say this in all candor. This is an event that I don't think anybody wants. To have to declare a committee vacant along with its members is something that goes against the grain of any Senate. Unfortunately, as I was saying earlier, and the Senate President will recall, we have to choose the committees very, very well. Otherwise, there would be conflict. And the situation on the Committee on Justice was certainly not unexpected. Certainly, the pressure being put to bear upon the President and certain members of the Senate, accusing one another of all kinds of things, does not help. And certainly, the result was not totally unexpected. I'd like to bring to this committee, therefore, an objective investigation of whatever is brought before the plate or whatever laws we have to sponsor or meetings that we have to go. Certainly, a lot of consultation will have to be made. I voted reluctantly for this as well, but I voted with a clear conscience. And you know me, Mr. President, I do not vote half-heartedly. When I make a decision, I go for it on all fours. And precisely because of that, I did not want a situation where we would be second-guessing what was going to happen next in the committee. Certainly, it may have put, perhaps arguably, the Senate in a very difficult position because every day, the issues before the Committee on Justice was getting the headlines. Rightly or wrongly, it was unfair to the Senate. It was unfair, more importantly, to the country. And certainly, it behooves us all to make sure that we go beyond the expectations of the public and go take the highest traditions that this Senate has had in the past. Now, Mr. President, it is precisely for this reason that I hope that everybody will understand and learn from this experience. Nobody is happy seeing senators being displaced from their committees, let alone the person involved. And we commiserate. But, you know, the situation in the country is very fluid right now, and there are many things coming out in the woodwork. The whole world is talking about the country, and from what I hear, and from what has been said by the President, particularly in matters involving foreign policy, I did expect that there would be reactions from the powers that be in the international community. And that is why I'm very concerned about the situation. I'm also concerned about the fact that the President is going around the country talking to the military. Everywhere. And you can see that every day. And perhaps he is very concerned about the situation in the country having a war on drugs and a war on terrorism. If all the members of this Senate listened to the privileged speech of this representation the other week, I never threatened to come up and say we were going to declare a suspension of the writ of habeas corpus. Precisely because of that, I merely came out to this conclusion, Mr. President, because I fear the consequences, because I didn't want the Senate polarized. In the first place, Mr. President, you already have a situation because everybody is saying you cannot have an objective result from combatants. And there are combatants here from the executive and from the legislation. And so, to the wisdom of the Senate, in declaring the seat vacant, I believe that decision was made Mr. President, and I will call for the orders of the day because I'm not distracted, and I appreciate that Senate President Drilon, my good friend, and my good friend Majority Floor Leader are talking, and sometimes it's very disturbing, Mr. President. I'm not saying I'm being disturbed by it. All I'm saying is delivering an extemporaneous speech would mean that I would get some, attention, so to speak, if I have to beg for it, and I'm not. And so, Mr. President, so that my line of thinking will not be, derailed, we do so here today for the benefit of the Senate, for an objective Senate, a Senate that will provide objectivity in the hearings, and that is why you can take a look even at the composition. I did not take part in selecting. I let the whole Senate talk about it, and we tried to reach the other parts of the majority, and they were the ones who recommended, and that is why Senator Cayetano is a member of the committee, and so is Senator De Lima. And we tried to get lawyers, Mr. President, to come into the committee so that whatever investigation will happen will be done in the highest interest of the country. It doesn't serve us well when suddenly witnesses are produced and the co-chairman of the committee, Senator Lacson, is not aware of it. It opens us to criticism. That is what we will try to avoid. We will avoid surprises. We will be transparent because that's the rule of law. Transparency, predictability, consistency, and continuity. And that is why, Mr. President, while I do so reluctantly, I do not shirk at the responsibility. I will accept the challenge with the help of the members of the committee, and I thank them for their vote of confidence, but I do expect that they will also participate in all the hearings with fairness, with equanimity, and with the highest interest of the country at heart. And even if some of them will be talking, I'm sure they will be talking not out of turn, but they were talking about the issues of the day. And hope that that will be translated in the decisions that we're going to make in the future. Thank you very much, colleagues, and thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Gordon. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. By the way, for the record, Mr. President, earlier when we were discussing this with Senator Gordon, we had assurances that the investigations of the Senate Committee on Justice on extrajudicial killings will continue.
Yes.
For the record. May we now recognize Senator Trillanes, Mr.
Senator
President.
Trillanes is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. In line with the manifestation of the Majority Floor Leader, this representation would like to register or have this parliamentary inquiry regarding the status of the protective custody of Mr. Edgar Matobato, which was ruled upon by the Justice Committee last Thursday, unanimously, if I may say. And although this representation submits that the Senate President has the authority over the sanctuary within the premises of the Senate, but the protective custody part is the one this representation is questioning. I so move, Mr. President.
Majority Leader, can we clarify now the parliamentary situation?
I don't think there is a motion, Mr. President. I think it's a parliamentary inquiry and what we should do. What we should do with the status. Mr. President, I will be speaking based on my opinion. Because I distinctly remember during the committee hearing, I was still there when Senator Trillanes moved that the witness be accepted by the Senate as a witness under a witness protection program of some sort, and I pointed out that there is no such program in the Senate. So he rephrased it by saying that to have the witness in protective custody. And I indeed said if protective custody ang pinag-uusapan, I have no problems. But the witness protection program, I've been here since 1992. We've never had any witness protection program in the Senate. So that is the situation. There were 3 or 4 members of the Blue Ribbon that were there, and in the original motion, Senator Lacson and I were asking if there was a quorum. So we did not really, I don't know, I was not there when the committee so decided. No, so I cannot speak for that. Now, the question of the gentleman is, what do we do now with the protective custody of the witness now that there is a reorganization in the Committee on Justice? So we leave it to the discretion of the Senate President, because the Senator Trillanes, member of the minority, may be able to take it up on the floor.
Mr. President,
Senator Drilon is ready.
may I offer a solution? The matter of the protective custody of the witness was decided by the committee. Now there is a new composition of the committee. I would earnestly suggest that this issue be brought before the committee for the committee to decide what to do with this protective custody, since this is a matter in the committee, not before the plenary. That is my submission, Mr. President.
Senator Trillanes, you wanted to say?
So in the meantime, Mr. President, the protective custody, unless rescinded by the new membership, would remain. Is that the ruling, Mr.
If that was the ruling, Mr. President, if that was the ruling of the committee, then so be it. But under protective custody of the committee, and let the committee decide according to Senator Solomon Drilon, Mr. President.
That's why the Senate President refrained from participating in the discussion, because I have no knowledge of what happened before at the committee level.
Precisely.
So I will just accept the factual allegation that there was a committee decision to extend protective custody. So that should be now addressed to the new committee. Senator
Yes.
Gordon?
I'm a bit confused, Mr. President, because as far as I know, the matter I think that the committee decided on was to refer it to the Senate President. And I bow to the wisdom of the current Senate President, including the Solomonic one, and we will try to find out by looking at the minutes, Mr. President. I think we should look at the minutes to find out what actually was discussed, so that we could actually decide on this matter. Because truth to tell, if I'm sure any member of the Senate was handling the committee other than the charged atmosphere that the chairman at that time was at, I'm sure they would not have also allowed a witness coming from outside, coming from the cold, discussing things that were not part of the resolution, the original resolution of the committee, Mr. President. So I would therefore ask my colleague, Senator Trillanes, that we all look at the records of the hearing last time before we make a decision, without the permission of everybody.
Yes. In the meantime, there is the suggestion of Senator Drilon that let the committee decide.
So in the
So
meantime,
in the meantime, it stands as it is, Mr. President.
so whatever is in the minutes, that decision would prevail until rescinded
Until
or
the
reversed
new
by
committee decides, yes.
I
All right.
submit, Mr. President.
All right. With that, Mr. President, I move to adjourn the session because the Senate President and the members of the Senate have guests from the British Parliament waiting. So we will proceed with the reference of business tomorrow, Mr. President. So in the meantime, I move to adjourn the session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Tuesday, September 20, 2016.
Is there any objection? There being none, the session is adjourned until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Tuesday, September 20, 2016.
This is an event that I don't think anybody wants. To have to declare a committee vacant along with its members is something that goes against the grain of any Senate. Unfortunately, as I was saying earlier, and the Senate President will recall, we have to choose the committees very, very well. Otherwise, there would be conflict. And the situation on the Committee on Justice was certainly not unexpected. Decision will have to be made. I voted reluctantly for this as well. But I voted with a clear conscience. And you know me, Mr. President, I do not vote half-heartedly. When I make a decision, I go for it on all fours. And precisely because of that, I did not want a situation where we would be second-guessing what was going to happen next in the committee. Certainly, it may have put, perhaps, arguably, the Senate in a very difficult position because every day, certainly, the pressure being put to bear upon the President and certain members of the Senate, accusing one another of all kinds of things, does not help. And certainly, the result was not totally unexpected. I'd like to bring to this committee, therefore, an objective investigation of whatever is brought before the plate or whatever laws we have to sponsor or meetings that we have to go. Certainly, a lot of consultation.
Hearing none, the motion is approved and the Justice Committee is so constituted. Senator Gordon?
With the permission of the Majority Floor Leader, Mr. President, I am honored and I thank those of you who asked me to chair this committee. I do so without any lobbying on my part to get this committee. The Senate President is well aware of the fact that I never asked for the Blue Ribbon Committee, and what was left of the other committee, I accepted without any lobbying on my part. In this particular instance, hindi rin po ako nanghingi nitong committee ito. It's a very, very difficult task to handle, especially with the Blue Ribbon Committee and the Government Corporations Committee as well. I have handled 3 committees in my first time in the Senate, and as you know, I will always give it 100% whenever we do handle these committees. I do pray for the support of the members and the understanding. I just want to say this, in all candor.